If you want to accomplish certain tasks or set certain goals without considering the Most High, the scriptures tell you what's going to happen. And you can bring this out real quick.
This is Acts 5:38.
Come.
And now I say unto you, refrain from these men and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of Yahweh, ye cannot overthrow it, lest happily ye be found even to fight against the Lord.
So if you move according to scriptures, guess what? You're going to have success, because the Most High, that's his will and his determination. But it said that, hey, if you do not do what the Most High asks you to do, or you don't walk according to that path that he's laid down, it's going to come to naught, right? And truthfully, in the earth at this time, we don't want what Esau has, nor do we want what he has to offer, right? Get this in Hebrews 13 and 14, right? We already know that this society is circling the drain, and we know that, guess what? Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. It says that in 2 Ezra 6 and 7, right? But it's nothing that we want from him, or we don't want anything that he has to offer, right? Psalms 49 and 11 says that a majority of our people's inward thought is that this society is going to go on for generation to generation, right? But we understand that we're at the end of this thing, right? His hurtful works are damn near fulfilled, right? That falling away has happened. And guess what? That man of perdition that's written of in the book of Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, he's being revealed in this time. So the so-called white man being revealed, that's a major part of, his society, his kingdom, his world coming to an end, right? You can bring out what you got.
This is Hebrews 13 and 14. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come.
Hey, we seek a continual city to come, right? It's nothing that we want from Esau. We don't want nothing he has to offer, right? We don't want to sit down at a table with him, like it says in Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thy enemy, right? Who will pity a charmer bitten by a snake? We understand that, guess what? He's the father of lies, right? Get this in Psalms 55. Psalms 55, right? We understand that the so-called white man made over 500 treaties, pacts, and agreements with the North American Indians, right? From the year 1778 to 1871, the so-called white man made over 500 treaties, agreements, pacts, covenants with the so-called Native American Indians, the northern tribe, of which he didn't uphold not one, right? In roughly a 100-year span of time, he conquered the Gadites, the Seminole Indians, the Taino Indians, the Arawak Indians. And guess what? All of the agreements that he made with them, look at the agreements he made with us, the so-called black man, 40 acres and a mule, right? Going all the way back to the Geneva Agreement. And hey, if you look throughout history, this so-called white man has a nasty reputation in the earth for not honoring any of his agreements that he makes with all the other inhabitants of the earth, right? I'm talking about the wicked written of in Malachi 1 and 3, right? That even the Most High hates, like it says in the book of Romans 9. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Why? Because that spirit in them, they're estranged from the womb. They're contrary to anything that's upright or equitable, right? Anything that's fair, the so-called white man, guess what? He's not going to follow through with his agreements. He's all about usury, beguiling, deceiving. That's why we call him the devil that the Bible speaks of. So in this time, you have different men that are actually going out to try to influence Israelites to sit down and listen to what our enemies have to offer. But what does the Bible say about our enemies, right? You can bring this out to Psalm 55. This Bible is going to speak on why the Most High hates Esau Edom. His creation, he created him so he knows him. When he said, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, a nigga say, are all white people bad? First of all, I've never seen a white person. Secondly, the Lord's people are scattered in every land. I'm not going to judge according to the outward appearance, although the skin color is an indicator, right? John 8:44, Yahweh was talking to niggas, ye of your father the devil. Right? 2/3 of our people, we're not going to say that they're good based upon their melanin content. That's not being spiritual. A spiritual man don't judge according to the outward appearance. But Romans 8:16 said it is the spirit that bears witness with our spirit. Among Europeans, guess what? You have a wicked root of Edomites. And the Psalms 53:3 says, guess what? Let me bring this out real quick. Right? Because we're going to get right back to Psalms 55:21. But Psalms 53, it gives an answer. Are there any good white people? Because a lot of our people always try to leave an out to Esau, Edom. They all can't be bad, and that's true. But guess what? You have to get in your mind that they're not white. You have to get that out of your head, this complexion. Just because they have what you call white or leprous or pink skin, that does not mean that they're so-called white people or an Edomite, as the Bible calls it, pursuant to Genesis 25:25, right? So in Africa, do you have that wicked root, right? Because in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, it says that it talks about a parable of the wheat and the tares. It talks about the wheat representing an Israelite that you can see clearly is a wheat, but one thing about a tare, it looks like a wheat. It's sown, right, through slavery. The so-called white man has an element of his nation among our people. So you cannot look at this carnally from a physical color. Although if you see that pink skin, that's an indicator. That doesn't mean that they're an Edomite. They're so-called black Latinos and Native Americans that go from charcoal to chalk white. So it's a spiritual thing that we do to vet, to see if someone is an Israelite or if they're not. But this is Psalms 53:3. It says, the fool has said in his heart that there is no God. Corrupt are they. They have done abominable iniquity. There is none that doeth good. Verse 3. Every one of them has gone back. They are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good. No, not one. So that wicked, it is representative of the whole house of Esau, but also 2/3 of our people. Right? There are none that do good. They'll say that there's no God, and they are totally godless. Right? But going back to Psalm 55:21, right? Ice Cube is sitting down with a lot of these politicians thinking that he's doing something innovative, right? But the Most High knows the nature of his left-handed creation, Esau, Edom, right? You can bring up that.
This is Psalms 55:21.
Good.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter.
Hey, the scripture said the so-called white man, just like with the Native American Indians, it says here, from 1778 to 1871, the U.S. entered into more than 500 treaties with the northern tribes. All treaties have since been violated or outright broken. Right? Bring this out one more time for the brother Ice Cube.
This is Psalms 55:21.
Done.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart.
That's what happened when he rode on the shores of what was then known as Turtle Island, which he called America. Right? He saw those Native Americans, and guess what? He didn't come drawing swords. He came famished from that boat ride. He didn't know what plants that he can grow on the land, so he sat on under the North American Indians as a brother, friendly, for a large span of time before he drew those swords. But bring this out from the top one more time.
This is Psalms 55:21.
Done.
The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords.
It said that even though the so-called white man will be speaking, right, with fair speech, get just to Genesis 3:1, right? Even though he'll be using smooth words, compound words, right? He'll have this, priestly way about him, smiling and beguiling. It said that inwardly, it's something, sinister that's bubbling and brewing inside the white man's spirit. And that's what happened with the Native American Indians, right? He didn't come drawing swords. He came speaking smooth words, calling them brother, and, you know, not the Pilgrims, but the Puritans, right? They were famished. They had to be nurtured, and that's what the Native Americans did. They didn't know what animals to catch, what plants to heal. They didn't know what crops could grow in this ground, and no, they didn't have any knowledge of that, but that was given to them by the kind-hearted, but yet very naive and gullible northern tribes, right? That were at that time partaking in all type of heathenistic customs, but that's why they were overcome by that truth, right? That North American cavalry, right? Bring this out one more time, Baba Kushal. Yes, Psalms 55 and 21. Oh, Genesis 3, you can bring that out.
Genesis 3 and 1.
Go on.
Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord Yahweh had made. And
it said the serpent, right? Because just like in the precept that we read in the book of Isaiah 56, it talks about that the other nations, sometimes they're likened unto trees, sometimes hills, mountains. But in this precept, the so-called white man is likened unto a serpent. Why? Because of his sly, shrewd, cunning nature, right? Using words smoother than butter, but gourds in his heart. That's why he's known as that serpent, that old serpent, you know, in the scriptures, right? Look at the attributes of a snake, right? That's why the so-called white man is known as the serpent, you know, in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, because he's very cunning, right? He'll come with one intention, but he'll keep that overt. And covertly, he'll show you something totally different. And guess what? Right when your guard goes down, just like it says in Sirach 12 and 18, that serpent will bite you. Why? Because, hey, you think you could charm that snake. You didn't think that snake had fangs or that snake had teeth, right? And that kind of reminds me of that old Indian parable, right? About that man that found a snake and he nurtured it.
One winter a farmer found a viper frozen and numb with cold, and out of pity picked it up and placed it in his bosom. The viper was no sooner revived by the warmth than it turned upon its benefactor and inflicted a fatal bite upon him. And as the poor man lay dying, he cried, "I have only got what I deserved for taking compassion on so villainous a creature." Kindness is thrown away upon the evil. End of The Farmer and the Viper.
And he nurtured it. Then the snake bit him. He said, "Why'd you bite me?" He's like, "I'm a snake." Right? This is the so-called white man's nature. That's why I said there be none that do it good. Right? You can bring this out in Sirach 12 and 10. And we're about to wrap it up. You know, we're just going to bring out just a little more edification. Just a little more edification. Because that's what it's all about. Edifying the elect. We got somewhat of a late start, but through the power of Spirit, hey, in season, out of season, we come out. Because we're commanded, mainly, but because this is what we love to do. Right? Minister to our nation and give them the gift of salvation. Right? You can bring what you got.
This is Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thy enemy. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and grow crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou had wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away.
Hey, he said, don't trust him, and you'll be able to, see straight through him. Understanding his nature and understanding that, guess what? I'm not going to play with somebody that's my enemy. I'm not going to even sit them down at the table with me or sit down at the table with them to try to discuss anything pertaining to justice, uprightness, righteous. No, we're made to teach them, right? Like a teacher does a child. It's nothing that the so-called white man can do to benefit us, right? They were made, like it says in 2nd Esdras 6:54. It said the earth was made for our sake, and these nations that are around about us were made to serve us, not made to sit and give us instruction or show us how to, find a loophole in this society, right?